Good afternoon. My name is Ces Butner, and I have the honor to serve as this year's president of Rotary Club of Oakland. Founded in 1908, the Rotary Club of Oakland is the third oldest Rotary Club of some 35,000 Rotary clubs throughout the world. We are a community of 300 men and women from all walks of Oakland civic and commercial and community life, committed to Rotary motto of service above self. I'd like to welcome you to our 5,309th club meeting. For over 111 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests from around the world to our club meetings. We continue to do so virtually, so if you're visiting Rotarian or if you're a guest of a Rotarian, please let us know by typing your name and the name of your club into the chat box located at the center bottom of your screen, as indicated by the red arrow on the slide you're viewing now. By doing so, we will be able to recognize you later in this meeting. Also, we recommend that all participants view this Zoom meeting by clicking the speaker view button located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And if you have comments throughout the meeting or questions for the speaker, please use the chat button at the bottom of the screen for that as well. And now, for our thought for the day, Rotarian Maud Prever.
Thank you, President Ces. Today is the eve of the Jewish New Year, and it's a time of many traditions. The one that I treasure is it's an opportunity for 10 days of reflecting on the year that was and the year to be. And crazy as this last year has been, the goal of the reflection is to think about how we can be better ourselves. My advice to myself in this situation or this time is, as we struggle with the great challenges that are going on outside ourselves, to use this precious time to look within and identify those qualities I most aspire to, and think about how I might handle the future with more of those as my guides. I commend you to this time of reflection.
Thank you. Because we want to remain grounded and focused, we begin our meetings by jointly reciting our vision, which is, put it up on the screen, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. I hope you enjoyed last week's meeting that featured our Cerrone Lena Scholarship Committee and the important work they do, not only giving scholarships, but providing mentorship for our young people as well. So if you're interested in serving as a mentor for one of our scholarship recipients, don't forget to notify Steve Blair or Fred Morris and the committee to serve. We need mentors. So make sure you join them, get a hold of them. I also hope you enjoyed the Oakland Museum Director, Lori Fogarty, and her topic of what Oakland Museum is doing for racial diversity and inclusion. That speaker and topic was designed as one of in the series of topics to address our racial justice statement. Today, we'll hear from the Interact Committee. Interact clubs, as you know, bring together young people, ages 12 to 18, to develop leadership skills while discovering the power of service above self. Let's see how ours is doing today. In addition, we have a special treat as speaker for the day, another of Oakland's treasures from the Fruitvale and our Hispanic community that I think you'll enjoy. So sit back and enjoy another in our great Civic Thursday meetings where you can catch a great speaker and get involved with Rotary where service above self exists. So let's get started with the meeting with our Business Development Committee sponsor of the week. The sponsor of the week is Rotarian Kimberly Miller.
Thank you, President Ces. Hello, everybody. Hello, Rotarians. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. I hope some of you remember me. I'm a fellow Rotarian, and since last year, the new-ish Executive Director of Children's Fairyland. The wand was passed a year ago by another magical Rotarian, some of you may know. What a year. Who would have thunk I would have had my first year include 6 months of a pandemic? I was given this amazing opportunity to implement a bold vision of bringing the magic to more children across our beloved Oakland and the greater Bay Area. Can you hold off on that slide, please? Thank you. I was given this opportunity to implement a bold vision to bring back the magic to more children across Oakland and the greater Bay Area. I was working before the pandemic with an amazing team, and then the pandemic struck. And like all of our sister institutions, Oakland Museum of California, Chabot Space and Science Center, Oakland Zoo, and many others, we had to shut down. And shutting down meant we had to pivot our talents, innovate, reimagine who we are and who we want to be, and go digital like everyone else, and do things we've never done before. So it was really an inventive time for us. After all, Fairyland may not be as old as this club, but this year, Fairyland is 70 years old on September 2nd, and we plan to be around for 70 more. In order to ensure that happens, we fought hard to preserve our staff, make sure we were keeping them safe, keeping them close to the organization and employing them as much as we could. Then we took our talents to Zoom, just like this club, and worked furiously behind the scenes to figure out how Fairyland could reopen safely and bring the magic back that generations have enjoyed. Oh, and of course, we made some cool, I have some show and tell, Fairyland masks. Woohoo, little Willie the Whale for ya, little key for ya. So we did some fun stuff too. We did a few cool things this summer. We found new ways to reach our community beyond the confines of our physical park. We have our biggest digital audience ever by offering our magic online. Puppet shows, performers, toddler story times, and other types of opportunities for families to engage with us and in support of our families. So that was really a big deal for us. Also, we turned our summer camp design upside down for Alameda County Public Health to try to figure out how we could support the littles, and we had a very successful summer camp. We also reached out to our global audience of grown-up kiddos who remember Fairyland and asked if they could support our efforts to persevere through the pandemic. And boy, did they, including Rotary number 3, of course. We raised over $300,000 through 1,500 donations from all across the country. That's an average of about a couple $100 a person. It's pretty amazing for any organization and definitely for Fairyland. Next, in keeping with the tradition of releasing a commemorative key every 5 years, we did so and released a beautiful black metallic key that some of you might have seen. We released that key to signal our plans that we had before the pandemic to engage more Black and Brown families in experiencing the magic of Fairyland and magic and wonders of Fairyland. This is reaffirming our understanding that access to the park and representation in the park matter. The key nearly sold out in a week, and all those funds are going to go to further our efforts to reach more children and families across our region. Phew, that was a lot of work. You can put my slide back up now, Jack. That was a lot of work, but now I have 2 things to tell you about, and 2 special events. Oh no, Jack, you're taking up my screen. We have 2 events to tell you about right now. The first one I want to tell you about is on September 26th. I invite you all to help us celebrate Fairyland's 70th birthday by online, of course, physically distant, with some grown-up celebrities from Oakland's own who agreed to read children's stories for us. Celebrity Story Time. It's free to attend and our birthday gift to our community. It's also a fundraiser because the diversity of the stories our homegrown celebrities will tell that evening deserve a home at Fairyland in the years and decades to come. We invite you to join us. The link to reserve, I'll put in chat in just a sec. Watch our website and social media for more information on who's joining us, because it's gonna be crazy magical and you won't wanna miss it. And I'd like to say a special thanks to two Rotarians, CJ Hirschfield and David Stein, for helping to seed this effort. We are forever grateful. And I would like to ring the bell, President Ces,
All right.
for Carla Betts for bringing the magic back with our lead gift for this event. Yay!
Thank you so
The
much.
second thing, one more thing, President Ces. The second thing I want to
I'm working on my time now.
I know, I'm gonna mess with it just a little bit. Just allow me some space. Okay, some of you might be wondering when we're gonna open. We're excited to say that we're finally clear to do so. Shh, we're gonna make formal announcements next week with more details. We should be open by the end of the month. So thank you for all the rooting for us that you've done and all of the support. And see you on September 26th for Celebrity Story Time. We look forward to 70 more, and check the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Rotarian Kimberly Miller, and that enthusiastic introduction of your business. Now, past District Governor Ed Jelen, do we have any visiting Rotarians as our guests?
Yes, we do, President Ces. No visiting Rotarians, but we have some very nice guests that we're happy to have excuse me, join us today. And I'm going to refer to them as Ces guests because they're your guests, President Ces. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Daria Edgerly, who is with us today. Welcome, Daria. Nice to have you with us. And we also have with us Danny Wan, who is another Ces guest. So welcome, Danny. Appreciate you joining us and hope you enjoy our meeting.
All right. Thank you so much. Now, as you get along, we have a tradition of transitioning our red badge new members to blue badge when that member creates a certain task. They go through new member orientation, they join a committee, make a commitment, giving commitment to the Rotary Foundation or the Oakland Rotary Endowment, and they give a 3-minute self-introduction. As a club, we've fallen behind on our commitment to get the transition from red to blue badges and have a bit of a backlog. I've committed to getting those red badges introduced to moving them to blue badges. Today, we have Rotarian Carrie Hamill giving her 3-minute introduction. Carrie.
Good afternoon. I hope each of you and your family is healthy. By way of introduction of myself, I grew up in Detroit, and Michigan is very top of mind with me right now because I'm here in Michigan with my 92-year-old, very feisty father, helping him get through this pandemic. I was raised in a very religious family of 9, and the lingering value that was taught to us as children was that value of service. I finished college in California and stayed. I spent 6 years working as a daily newspaper reporter for the Contra Costa Times. Then I landed in the office of Mayor Elihu Harris. And among many things working with Elihu, it was my great privilege working with him as he rebuilt the area after the 1991 fire. He brought together federal, state, county, community people under one roof to create a one-stop shop to facilitate rebuilding. And he made sure that that area up there was undergrounded with all their utilities. Again, another big collaboration to make that happen. My children attended Oakland Public Schools. I served for 8 years on the Oakland School Board. My focus was on literacy while I was there. It was a time of great tumult in the Oakland School Board, and the Oakland School District. But my favorite takeaway was the creation of family reading nights, which were sort of a celebration of literacy and evenings that we did in every single neighborhood in the school where families would come after work, have a meal, spend the evening reading to their kids, having special guests, etc. It was really very magical. So then when I went to work for BART, my father said to me that he thought I was going to be really bored there because, you know, he thought transit was really a dud, you know, wise words from the son of a Henry Ford worker his whole life. So I worked for BART for 15 years and waited for that boring day. Among those 15 years, there were no boring days. There was the Oscar Grant shooting, there were 2 strikes, there were huge fluxes in ridership, increases and decreases. But I'm most proud of the work that was done to rebuild the infrastructure with a $3.5 billion bond that the public agreed to do, and also a $1.2 billion federal grant that was approved right before I retired last year. And the contract just got signed on it actually 2 days ago. So the money will start flowing, and BART needs the money for its infrastructure. I have done some wonderful service projects with the Rotary. I want to shout out to Karen Friedman for the work that we were doing over at Laney College, doing food distribution. I'm doing similar work citywide right now with Oakland Public Schools and the food bank to make sure that people in neighborhoods, in 26 different neighborhoods, are fed on Mondays and Thursdays. And I look forward to accelerated service opportunities with Rotary in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. And when we return to in-person meetings, your shiny new blue badge indicating your completion of permanent member requirements is waiting on you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, Rotarian Greg Anus, what's happening with Interact Committee?
Good afternoon, President Ces and fellow Rotarians. The Interact Clubs have several timely and exciting events coming up in the next few months. With the assistance of Mark Rosen, Gary Flaxman, and Catherine Coleman, the Interact Clubs are participating in a voter registration project. For this project, the interactors are contacting acquaintances that they have, people they already know, and inquiring as to if those people are registered to vote. If those people aren't registered to vote, the interactors give them information on how to vote and how to do other things such as ballot tracking. Another effort that has been spearheaded by Mark Rosen, Michael Bruck, as well as in concert with the the Uptown Oakland Rotary Club, is a Oakland Zoo fundraiser. Several interactors are participating in this. This fundraiser started as a bike-a-thon, but is turning into a combined effort with a already existing Oakland Zoo run. The Fall Leadership Conference, which is the Paramount student event, Paramount Spirit event for Interact, is taking place on October 10th and 11th. The following week after this event, I would like to have several interactors attend a Oakland Rotary lunch meeting to announce the community and global service projects, which are announced at the Fall Leadership Conference. Area-wide, there is an Interact board being formed that will consist of service event and fundraising chairs, as well as other chairs. This board will help the schools work more closely together. And I think this board is kind of cool because it mimics the Rotary committee chair format, which is the idea of Interact to sort of, mirror Rotary in a way. American Indian Model School interactor Matthew Wong has been chosen to be an editor for the Interact District newsletter. So this is really exciting. This newsletter is similar to the district newsletter that Rotarians receive. On the horizon, interactors have a chance to volunteer for Gravity Water, which educates youth about the worldwide water crisis. Additionally, interactors will have an opportunity to volunteer for the Crucible, which is fantastic because when you're playing with fire, it's pretty easy to social distance. All right, that's all I got right now.
Thank you so much, Greg. I think we're going to skip the breakout rooms today because I'm excited about hearing our speaker for the day. So I'll go right to Tom, Rotarian Tom Lamone, who will introduce our speaker for the day.
Okay, thank you, President Ces, and Rotarians and guests. So today I'm introducing Arabella Martinez. So as you know, there's Diego, there's Frida, there's Jordan, The Rock, and then there's only one Arabella. Arabella Martinez is probably best known for her tenacity and ability to overcome adversity with brilliance and grace. Some have even described Arabella as wielding an iron fist in a velvet glove. Arabella Martinez became a founder and the first CEO of the Unity Council in Oakland's Fruitvale neighborhood back in 1964. In 1977, President Jimmy Carter appointed Arabella Martinez to Assistant Secretary of the Office of Human Development Services in the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, making her the first Latina appointed to a sub-cabinet level position. Arabella returned to lead the Unity Council in December of 1989, when the organization was just days away from permanently closing its doors. Over the next 15 years, the organization generated more than $200 million in support for the Unity Council's programs, the Fruitvale Transit Village, and housing and open space initiatives. After retiring from the Unity Council in 2005, she joined the Latino Community Foundation Board of Trustees and currently serves as their vice chair. She also serves as a national board member of the Raza Development Fund and serves as a Port of Oakland commissioner alongside our President Ces Butner and Robert Kidd's spouse, Joan Story. Arabella's illustrious career embodies one of Rotary's core values, service above self. Her work and projects have earned her many top honors at the local and national stage, including Oakland's Citizen of the Year, the League of Women Voters, A Woman Who Could Be President, and the Cal Alumni Association's Excellence in Achievement Award. Her real estate projects have also earned Gold Nugget Awards, Real Estate Deals of the Year, and honors from the Urban Land Institute. Arabella earned her graduate and master's degrees from UC Berkeley. And with that, please give a warm welcome to Arabella Martinez.
Thank you. Buenos dias. Can you hear me? You can, okay. Thank you, Ces, for inviting me. You're my favorite chair of all time. And I'm so happy that I get to share the story of my beloved Unity Council. Also, I want to thank Tom Limon, who I've known since he was a child in a stroller, believe that or not. And as a staff member of the Unity Council, and who has been helping me with the technology of putting this presentation together. I'm not very technically savvy, but I can excuse myself by saying I'm, after all, 83 years old at this time. Let me tell you a little bit about the Unity Council's story. Because first it is a story of the Fruitvale, a low-income Latino community in Oakland, which in 1964 decided to take charge of its own destiny. It really is a story about a unique community institution in which the Unity Council developed a strategic plan in 1990 to economically, physically, and socially revitalize the Fruitvale. It's a story about the $100 million plus transit village, which was built against all odds and is now considered to be a model of transit-oriented development, smart growth, sustainable development, new urbanism, equitable development. And it is a story of a remarkable public and private partnership, which the city of Oakland really was a major partner, as was BART, the federal government, the state of California, many private foundations. The Unity Council's stories is different because over the years, it's gone through different phases of development. The first phase was getting a seat on the table. And that was in 1964. In 1960, the second phase was really basic community organizing, advocacy, and working toward political empowerment. We have a little problem there. Okay, did you get it? Yeah. And finally, it's a story about being able to envision something which you could not see, or seeing the invisible and doing the impossible, and realizing the dream that we had for really revitalizing the Fruitvale. So I want to put the story in context of what was going on around us in 1964. That year, significant history was made with the passing of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Economic Opportunity Act, which is commonly known as the War on Poverty. And the War on Poverty promoted the idea that minority communities, communities of color, should have a seat at the table, because we had not for years and years had that seat on the table. The Unity Council was actually created in response to these national initiatives, especially in terms of being able to have a voice in what programs, what policies were being promulgated by the cities, by the state, by the federal government. We were not unique in this regard, because indeed Latinos throughout the Southwest, throughout California, and certainly in Oakland, did not have a seat in the table. And we only had, for example, one Congressman Edward Roybal in Los Angeles in 1964. Indeed, we Latinos were invisible, despite the fact that we were the first non-indigenous settlers of the United States, and also in California. This is really not working. Phase two was really when the Unity Council began directly doing community organizing, advocacy, and building political power. At the time in 1964, we did not envision ourselves becoming a nonprofit organization. Our focus was on advocacy and political empowerment in Alameda County, although our focus has always been on Oakland and specifically on Fruitvale. When we first started, our first support came from Father Oliver Lynch of St. Elizabeth's Parish in the Fruitvale. He provided us with a rent-free house on 35th Avenue next to St. Elizabeth's School, and that was our first office. And that's where we held our first meetings and first had volunteer staff. Among the leaders during those early years were some people that some of you might know, if you're at least old as I am. One was Jimmy Delgadillo, who was one of my mentors. And he was the chair of the Community Service Organization, a Saul Alinsky organization. And Bert Corona from the Mexican American Political Association. They were both very active in the political world in Oakland, and were very connected to Oakland's African American political leaders, including, again, people that some of you probably know: D.G. Gibson, Byron Rumford, Lionel Wilson, Don McCullum, L.U. Harris, and Evelio Grillo, who was another one of my mentors. In fact, our first political action was related to the No on 14 proposition, which was an anti-fair housing act, which was designed to overturn Rumford's Fair Housing Act. Unfortunately, we lost that effort, but we continued the political alliance with that group of African American leaders. Another of our goals was to bring public services into Fruitvale, because there were absolutely none located in Fruitvale. And the first public agency to do so was the California Department of Employment, which outstationed a part-time employee in the little house that we had free from St. Elizabeth. Subsequently, the city located and funded a public library, and then a information and referral service agency. Let's see, what else? We're stuck again. More critically, although it was not the Unity Council's intent to become a nonprofit community service organization, it created a nonprofit information and service delivery organization, the current East Bay Spanish-speaking Citizens Foundation, which received initial funding from Oakland's War on Poverty Agency. Then in 1967, the East Bay Spanish-speaking Citizens Foundation helped the Unity Council receive its first grant from the City of Oakland for an on-the-job training program. And the first director of that program and the first staff member of the Unity Council was Joe Cotto, who was the first Latino ever elected to the City Council at that time. Subsequently, our beloved Ignacio de la Fuente was elected to that City Council position and became the City Council president much later. For most of the years, I was not involved with the Unity Council because I began graduate studies at UC Berkeley, and then my first job was in the Livermore-Amador Valley. So phase 3 of the Unity Council, because we went through 6 different phases, began in 1969. And that was the year that the Unity Council received funding from the then Southwest Council of La Raza, now the Unidos US, a national civil rights organization. This funding was indirectly from the Ford Foundation, and it was in sync with the Unity Council's goals of advocacy and political empowerment. One of our advocacy efforts succeeded in a major reorganization of the then United Way of the Bay Area, bringing us the attention of major Bay Area corporations, including PG&E, Kaiser, Clorox, Safeway, and even the Oakland Tribune, which then formed our first corporate advisory board. And they included such names, again, some of them, you will remember them: Ed Sager, David Way, Bob Brower, Hal Pond, etc. Then everything changed in 1969 with the Tax Reform Act, which was passed to limit political activity by nonprofits, especially those funded by the Ford Foundation, including grantees like the Unity Council. These new guidelines and funding focused on, quote, hard programs, such as housing development and economic development versus soft programs like community organization and leadership development. And with this new funding and with this new policy, the Unity Council began a new phase of its development in which it would build housing and community facilities and create a loan packaging service. And it even obtained a federal savings and loan charter, which was located, the City Center Federal Savings and Loan was located on 14th and Broadway. And it provided a variety of social services to Latinos throughout Oakland, Alameda County, and even the larger Bay Area. In the fall of 1974, I resigned from the Unity Council, leaving it in the very good hands of Henry Messre, who continued building programs, building new community facilities and senior housing. And during that time, the Unity Council's reputation grew as one of the top tier community development corporations in the nation. In phase 4, or what I call phase 4, which was between 1982 and 1989, unfortunately, the Unity Council went through a very dark time, a time of decline, and I won't talk much about that. I wasn't here, so I don't know more than I know. Then phase 5 came, and a new vision and a strategy was developed, and that was in 1990 through 2005. And I had been gone from the Unity Council for more than 15 years and came back to try to rescue it and to create a new vision. We had at this point, we had an audacious goal, which was to economically, socially, and physically revitalize the Fruitvale. And it was audacious because we didn't have very much money. But the first thing we decided to do was that we were going to focus all of our time, all of our resources on the Fruitvale, and especially below Foothill to the estuary, and more specifically on East 14th Street or International Boulevard and Fruitvale Avenue's business district. Our rationale was that we simply did not have the resources to serve all of Oakland, certainly not Alameda County or the Greater Bay Area. Thus, we changed our strategy from being an ethnic-based strategy to a place-based strategy. That strategy was to focus on reversing the tremendous physical and economic decline of the Fruitvale at the time. And I hope we can show some of the slides.
Slide 2.
Slides 2 to 4.
Yeah.
You can see this was right on Fruitvale Avenue. This was a functioning business, and you can see what it looked like. Let's show the next slide. Here's a business that's not functioning anymore, and this was on East 12th Street. And that's what we found all over Fruitvale, and especially along International Boulevard. And it was scary because the stores were all boarded up. They were graffiti filled. There were these security gates, and essentially the good businesses had fled to other parts of Oakland, to other parts of Alameda County.
Next slide.
The second strategy we had was really to focus on reversing this physical and economic decline. We really were concerned because our residents were really frightened. They were afraid to shop in the area because of the grime and crime. And they had taken over the former school that had taken over this wonderful neighborhood of Fruitvale that had at one time been the second downtown of Oakland. There were constant shootings at nighttime due to the drug trafficking in the area. Children could not play in the few parks and recreation centers because of the drug dealing and the lack of support, of city support for these facilities. Indeed, once again, Fruitvale and its Latino population were invisible to the city. To reverse what was happening in Fruitvale, it was essential that we go back to our organizing roots. But this time we decided that it was essential that we involve all residents, all organizations, all groups, regardless of their ethnicity. It would take a whole village to begin reversing Fruitvale's decline. We held community meetings and organized the Fruitvale Community Collaborative to clean up the streets, to do crime watches, and subsequently the Fruitvale Main Street program to really begin addressing the condition of the businesses on International and Fruitvale Avenue. And we created, as we will see, and from slides 5 to 11, can we get those up? Okay. So this is one of the changes that we made, painted all those buildings, put a new pedestrian walkway from the BART station up to International Boulevard. Can we move the slides? So you can see the before and after on the facade improvements. We did hundreds of these buildings. Keep going. Next slide. Here's another whole series of buildings that we did the facade improvements. Keep going. We also created youth leadership and community leadership projects. So we did these beautification projects, put in these wonderful flower pots on the streets, did these incredible murals using a lot of young people who were dedicated to cleaning up the area. Next slide. And now you see the BART station. We had a lot of victories in terms of really involving the community, including the Fruitvale Merchants Association and several organizations which initially were very wary of what we were doing, why we were there. But we all got together and really began working with each other, and that was critical. So sometime in the early 1990s, BART decided that it was going to build a 4-story massive parking structure on one of its parking lots. This would further separate the BART passengers from walking up to International Boulevard to do shopping, or stop and shop. And in fact, the building of BART many, many years ago had really created a problem for the business district because people were afraid to get off of BART there and walk up from BART to East 14th Street. In any case, this was, as many of us in the community thought, was a disaster. And so we organized and we fought against this development, and we won. And it was thanks in great help, with great help from Ignacio de la Fuente. and the city of Oakland, they came to our rescue. And after our victory, we continued our efforts to improve the Fruitvale through our many physical and social programs, and especially our Fruitvale Main Street programs. But, you know, we were just barely touching the surface. It wasn't going to be enough to change Fruitvale. And two things occurred. One, I met with Professor Ed Blakely, whom again, some of you probably knew. And we walked the BART station, and he showed me how daunting it was for people to get off BART and walk up to International Boulevard because of the fact that what you saw was the back of buildings. You did not see any lighted spaces. It was very poorly lit. The vegetation was not maintained. And he suggested that if we tried to improve that walkway from BART to International Boulevard on 34th Avenue, it could help. The second thing that happened, and that began me thinking about BART and about that big 10-acre lot that maybe you could do some development. Subsequently, Jeff Ordway from BART, who was their real estate director, came to visit, and he said, I want to talk to you about transit-oriented development. And I sort of said, well, what's that? And he explained what it was and the efforts he had made over the years to get one built, I think, in El Cerrito, and could never get anywhere. So I thought it was a terrific idea, and we then began to do some planning, and we had a community charrette around various times. We invited, I don't know, 5, 6 architectural firms to come and show us what they would do with the BART station. And some of their designs were fantastic. Of course, there was the issue of, well, where are you going to get the money to do that? Well, in this case, we had an angel in Mayor Elihu Harris, who brought Department of Transportation Pena to visit us at the Fruitvale. And we talked about some of our ideas, but they were still pretty unformed. And then I ran into him at a conference in Detroit. And Pena asked me if I was going to be in Oakland in the next couple of days. And I said, well, I hadn't intended to. He then said, well, you know, you might want to think about it. And I knew then that I not only better think about it, but I better change my reservations. And we then met again at the BART station with the mayor, with Ignacio, with BART personnel. And he said, well, what is it that you'd like to do here? So I gave him this preliminary vision about building housing, building community facilities, building space for retail, building this passageway from BART station up to International Boulevard that would be safe, well lit, people wouldn't be scared. So he said, okay, what could you do with $400,000? And he presented this great big check. Well, you can imagine how I felt. But that allowed us to do the first major environmental studies, beginning to do real architectural development and design, and allowed us to begin raising money. And we had to raise a lot of money. And because we knew this was going to be over $100 million, and no one had, in my group, had ever raised $100 million, and I certainly had never raised $100 million. And so, but that $400,000 was a start. And one of the things we did, first of all, was to have our architect, the firm that we hired, do these incredibly beautiful architectural renderings of what we were talking about. Do we have some of those?
Yes. Slide 18.
Okay.
Can you tell me slide 18?
Well, now you can see a picture of the whole area of the Fruitvale Village. And altogether, we're talking not just the BART parking lot, but you're talking about around 19 acres. The BART parking lot was about 10 acres, but it was empty land, which is very important. And you can see, I don't know, I can't point really, but you can see the various parts of the transit village. You see the BART station, you see the first two parts of the transit village, site A and site B. You see the BART replacement parking, which was not ugly. The one that was proposed by BART was very, very ugly. I used to call it neo-fascist architecture. You can also see the public market, which we renovated, the old Masonic temple, which was falling apart. And now, since I've left, this is phase 6, my successors started building on, first of all, they've already built the first major housing development since I left, and it happens to be called Casa Arabella. I'm really, really honored. Can we see some more of the pictures, photos?
We're running out of time.
What?
We're running out of
Okay.
time. So let's go through the slides.
Can we see some photos?
Slide 20.
Starting with 20. There you go. Well, you can see. Just keep showing all of them. This was the first housing development we put in the project. This is a senior housing development. Won all kinds of awards. You can see the construction along 34th Avenue. You can see the Paseo, and you can see how people just crowded to it during some of our festivals. And we won all kinds of awards, all kinds of architectural awards, land planning awards, you name it. And during this time, we've had our community celebrations there, like our Dia de los Muertos festivals, which used to be mostly on International Boulevard, but spilled over into the Transit Village. And this is actually, is this Casa Arabella?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is Casa Arabella. And then this is going to be the final housing development, which has already been approved, and so forth. So by the time all of these projects get built, you're talking about over $200 million of investment. So if you just just to go back to the seeing the invisible, doing the impossible. I never saw, when we were first beginning to talk about this, I never saw until literally Jeff Ordway planted that seed that we could do something like that, that we could build a transit-oriented development. And people would say to me, as we were doing this work, well, who's the developer? I said, we're the developer. They said, well, you can't be the developer. You're not a developer. Yes, we are. And so with that, with the fact that people kept on saying it wasn't possible, we kept saying, yes, it is possible. And that's how we came to our seeing the invisible is doing the impossible. So that's all I think. I think that's more than enough.
Thank you so much, Arabella. It's always interesting to hear your tales of your life in the Fruitvale, because it's been a rather exciting life and the ups and downs of Fruitvale, but it is gorgeous how the Transit Village came out in the end, I think. And who would ever thought it possible?
Nobody thought it was possible.
But you made it possible, and that's what's great about it. I don't think we have time. Do we have any questions at all? Who's doing the questions? Is it Sandeepa? Sandeepa? I guess not. We don't have any questions. We didn't have time for the questions anyway. Let me tell you this, Arabella. This year, our club is making the homeless crisis in Oakland a priority. To that end, and as our gift to you for being our speaker for the day, in your honor, we are making a donation to support our unhoused residents in Oakland.
Terrific.
Additionally, we would like to give you our Centennial book, which documents 100 years of service and friendship in the third oldest club in the Rotary world, Oakland number 3, written by our very own Rotarian, Linda Hamilton. So if you accept that, please, I think that would be great.
I do want to say hello to Carrie.
All
Hi,
right.
Carrie.
Carrie, so she gives her introduction this week. Rotarian Anne-Marie Jones, do we have any additional bell ringers?
Why, yes, President Ces. We have 3 generous bell ringers. We have Kimberly Miller, Jim Caponegro, and Fred Morse. 3 times, please.
3? Is that what you said, Ann?
3,
Yes.
3, yes.
I'd like to ring the bell on behalf for Arabella Martinez, our speaker for today.
Thank you.
So this is really quite interesting, Arabella. I really enjoyed you coming here today to share that with us, that story with us. Rotarian Isaac Coss-Reed, will you tell us about the very special speaker for next week's meeting?
Absolutely, President Ces, but only after I also ring the bell for Arabella. Can't help but do so on such a great occasion. And I probably have I'm unique in that I also lived at the Fruitvale Transit Village for a while, so I can fully vouch for how nice a development that is. Yes, so next week we have, we're excited to welcome Alameda County Superintendent of Schools, Karen Monroe. Superintendent Monroe will be speaking about the state of public education across our county. And in case you did not know that we had a separately elected county superintendent, yes, indeed, we're one of a handful of counties that does, in addition to a 7-member elected county board. They oversee 18 unified school districts across the region, as well as some charter schools, and that serve about 225,000 students. The county plays a role in fiscal oversight and supporting special education, and it's important to recognize that for Oakland specifically, they are basically responsible for helping right the fiscal ship for OUSD so that we do not plunge back into state receivership like we did about 2 decades ago. So very, very important topic, especially at this time of the pandemic, and not just for those of us who are trying to figure out remote learning, but for all the businesses and organizations that rely on many employees who are also parents. So we hope you'll join us next week for what promises to be another very insightful Oakland Rotary Civic Thursday Luncheon.
Thank you, Isaac, for that tease of next week's Civic Thursday speaker. Thank you, Maud, for the thought for the day. And thank you, Greg, for updating us about the Interact activities. And thank you, Tom, for introducing our speaker. And finally, a big thank you to Kimberly for sponsoring this meeting. Pat, before I wrap up this meeting, I always have to ask you, do we have any more bell ringers? Bell ringers, as everyone knows, is a $100 gift to Oakland Rotary Endowment for any special occasion that you want or any special person that you would like.
Thank you, President Ces. We did have one additional bell ringer after you, and that's Tom Lamone, who is also ringing the bell for Arabella.
All right. So I'd like to end this meeting as usual. And that's the way it went at the 5,309th Club meeting on September 17, 2020 at Oakland Rotary number 3, the third oldest Rotary Club in the world. This meeting is adjourned.